If you have ever loved a dog, truly love one, you know, they do not just live in your house. They live inside your breathing, inside your routine, inside the silence between your thoughts. So when they disappear, something inside you disappears too. Our dog came back after 2 years, and I wish with everything left in me that he hadn't. His name was Baxter, golden retriever, broad chest, soft eyes, a tail that wagged before his brain processed joy. He was everything a family dog is meant to be. Friendly to strangers, gentle with our daughter, Lily, patient even when she tugged his ears or dressed him in plastic crowns. He never snapped, never growled, never guarded his food. He would rest his head on my knee when I worked late. He would follow my wife, Clara, from room to room just to be near her. When Lily cried, Baxter would press himself against her like a living blanket. He was not just loyal, he was devoted. And devotion, I've learned, can rot if neglected long enough. It was raining the afternoon he disappeared. Not storming, just steady rain. The kind that makes the world feel blurred and distant. We were distracted. Clara and I were arguing. Money, work hours, the way I'd been distant. The gate was left unlatched. We didn't notice until Lily asked, "Where's Baxter?" I told her he was probably chasing squirrels. He never came back that night. We searched, posted flyers, called shelters, drove the neighborhood at midnight, calling his name. Weeks turned to months. Months turned to silence. Eventually, we stopped saying his name in present tense. And that was the first betrayal. Lily stopped sleeping through the night. She kept Baxter's collar under her pillow. Clara stopped smiling the way she used to. And I avoided the backyard, because the empty space where he used to lie felt like accusation. It wasn't just a missing dog. It was something we failed to protect. And deep down, we all knew it. He came back on a Tuesday. No warning. No bark. I opened the front door for work, and he was sitting there. Perfect posture. Clean. Too clean. His fur glossy. No scars. No ribs showing. Just waiting. For a moment, my brain refused to process it. Then Lily screamed with joy. Clara dropped to her knees crying, and Baxter wagged his tail. Exactly the same way he always had. But his eyes held something still. Too still. He did not rush inside. He waited, as if asking permission. When I stepped aside, he walked past me slowly. Not sniffing, not exploring, just surveying. He found his old bed, Saturday, and stared into the corner of the living room. For a long time. That night, Lily slept better than she had in years. Clara smiled again, and I told myself I was imagining things. Because love makes you excuse what fear tries to show you. It began with corners. Baxter would sit in rooms and stare at empty corners. Head tilted slightly. Ears perked. Low. Almost an inaudible growl in his throat. Not aggressive. Not warning. More like recognition. When I called his name, he would not respond immediately. He would blink slowly, as if something else had to release him first. Baxter had always been gentle, but now he was possessive, not of food, of Lily. He positioned himself between her and Clara, between her and me, between her and doors. If I tried to hug my daughter too tightly, he would step closer, silent, watching. He never snapped, never barked. But the message was clear. Careful. It was 3:17 a.m. I woke to a sound. Not barking. Not growling. Breathing. Heavy. Right beside the bed. I opened my eyes. Baxter was standing inches from my face. Not blinking. His breath was cold. Not warm like a dog's breath should be. Cold. And in the silence, I swear I heard something layer beneath it. Not a voice, but intention. Then he turned and walked out, as if satisfied. The vet said he was perfectly healthy. Blood work normal. Heart strong. Teeth clean. No microchip, which made no sense. He had been chipped. 2 years ago. It was gone. Removed. With surgical precision. The vet asked if we were sure it was the same dog. Lily burst into tears. Of course it was. Same markings. Same scar on his back paw from when he stepped on glass as a puppy. But scars can be copied. That thought didn't feel like my own. The first time he growled at me, it wasn't loud, just a vibration. I had raised my voice at Lily for spilling juice. Baxter stepped between us, growled, and stared directly into my eyes. Not defensive, judging, like he knew something about me. Something I hadn't admitted. Clara said I imagined the tone, but she stopped raising her voice too. Dog sense guilt. Everyone says that, but this felt deeper. Whenever Clara and I argued, Baxter would stare at me, only me, as if I were the source. And maybe I was, because the night he ran away, I had kicked the gate shut carelessly. I had said, he'll come back. I had chosen pride over checking. Maybe he remembered. Maybe something else remembered. One night, I looked out the window and saw him in the yard. But I also saw something standing beside him. Tall, thin, distorted by darkness. Baxter was looking up at it, tail not wagging, not afraid, waiting. Then it leaned down, and Baxter turned his head directly toward me, as if aware I was watching. The shadow dissolved. But Baxter didn't move for a long time. He did not run away 2 years ago. Something took him, or something found him, and whatever returned needed entry into our home. Through love, through trust, through Lily's tears, through our guilt. It did not invade. It was invited. The night everything collapsed. Lily woke screaming. We rushed into her room. Baxter was standing on the bed, not touching her, just hovering over her face, staring, his mouth slightly open. No growl, no bark, just presence. When I pulled him away, he did something he had never done in his entire life. He snapped, not biting, but close enough that I felt his teeth graze air beside my hand. And in his eyes, there was no recognition. I tried everything. Blessings, behaviorists, cameras, but cameras would glitch around him. Audio distorted, frame skipped. Sometimes the footage showed him standing in 2 places at once. Clara refused to see it. Lily refused to believe it. And I began sleeping with the bedroom door locked. From Baxter, from my own dog. That is when I knew the bond had broken. Last night, I found Lily in the living room at 2 a.m., sitting on the floor, facing the corner, Baxter beside her, both staring at the same empty space. I whispered her name. She did not respond. She said softly, "He says it wasn't his fault." I felt something inside my chest hair open, because I knew she wasn't talking about the dog. She was talking about me. And Baxter, or whatever wears his shape, turned his head slowly toward me, eyes reflecting nothing. No light, no warmth, just depth. And for the first time since he came back, his tail did not wag. If you're hearing this, then you've already felt it. Maybe your dog paused too long at the hallway corner last night. Maybe it stared past you, not at you, but through you. Maybe you laughed it off. I laughed too. After everything that happened in our house, after Shadow came back wrong, I told myself the worst had passed. I thought evil, if that's what it was, had chosen us. I didn't understand something much worse. It wasn't choosing. It was spreading. Shadow stopped sleeping. Dogs sleep deeply. They twitch. They dream. They trust the night. But Shadow began sitting upright at the foot of our bed, from midnight until sunrise, perfectly still, eyes open, watching the door, not blinking. When I whispered his name, his ears didn't move. His breathing didn't change. He just kept staring at the dark. I told myself it was trauma from being lost for 2 years. Maybe someone hurt him. Maybe he had learned vigilance to survive. But then the other dogs began doing the same. It started with Mrs. Halpern's golden retriever. Baxter had always been the heart of the street. Gentle, affectionate, patient, the kind of dog that let toddlers pull his ears and would simply wag harder. He walked beside her without a leash. He greeted everyone, 3 nights after Shadow began his vigil, Baxter started howling at exactly 2:13 a.m. every night, long, low, sustained, and always facing my house. Mrs. Halpern laughed about it at first, said he must be sensing foxes, said dogs were strange creatures. Then she stopped laughing, because Baxter stopped wagging, stopped greeting, stopped responding to his name. He began standing at the fence, nose pressed to the wood, staring toward Shadow's window, and Shadow stared back. I should have moved. That's what people will think. Why didn't I take him to a shelter? Why didn't I run? Why didn't I end it when I saw the signs? Because you don't abandon family. And because some part of me believed this was my fault. The night Shadow ran away 2 years ago, we had fought. Not him and me. My wife and I, we were tired, overworked, snapping at each other. Shadow barked at the raised voices, confused, trying to comfort us the way loyal dogs do, nudging hands, pressing against knees. I yelled at him, "Go away." He flinched. I had never seen him flinch. Later that night, during the storm, he bolted through the half-latch gate. I searched for weeks. Posters, shelters, calls, nothing. Until the day he walked back into the yard, thin and silent and older somehow, and I wept into his fur. Now I wonder if something answered him that night in the storm. Something that followed him home. Or maybe something heard me. The neighborhood began to change in quiet ways. Dogs stopped playing together. They didn't bark at mail trucks anymore. They didn't chase squirrels. They didn't dig holes or roll in grass. They gathered, at first in pairs, then in clusters, standing at the edges of their yards at night, facing inward toward the street like silent sentries, all looking at nothing, or something we couldn't see. Children began saying strange things. Why does your dog hum? Why do their eyes glow when the lights are off? Why do they all stare at the same corner in my room? Parents dismissed it. Until the first bite, it wasn't vicious. That's what unsettled everyone. No snarling, no snapping warning. Just a slow, deliberate clamp of teeth around a wrist. Not enough to tear, not enough to maim, just enough to claim. The child described it like this. It felt like he was checking if I was real. The dog released her and walked away, tail straight, ears forward, like it had completed a task. Shadow began influencing me. I didn't notice at first. It started with small things. I'd forget to lock doors. I'd stand in the hallway at night and not remember walking there. Once, I woke up in the backyard at 3 a.m., barefoot, hand resting on Shadow's head while he faced the darkness beyond the fence. I couldn't remember going outside. I couldn't remember opening the door, but I remember the feeling. Peace, a deep, hollow calm, as if whatever he was watching was protecting us. That's when I realized something terrible. The fear wasn't coming from them. It was coming from us. The dogs weren't afraid. They were expectant. The transformation was never dramatic. No glowing eyes. No twisted limbs. Just absence. They stopped responding to affection. When you scratched behind their ears, they didn't lean into it. When you called their names, they paused, as if recalling something ancient and unfamiliar, before deciding whether to obey. They didn't wag. They assessed, as though loyalty had been replaced with evaluation, like they were deciding if we were still worth keeping. The night the entire neighborhood shifted, the power went out. No storm, no warning, just darkness and silence. No generators, no car alarms, no human voices, only synchronized breathing, low, measured, hundreds of dogs inhaling and exhaling in perfect rhythm. I stepped outside with a flashlight. The beam caught rows of eyes, all of them standing in their yards, facing the same direction. Not my house, not the street, the woods beyond the cul-de-sac, the old abandoned lot where nothing ever grew. Shadow stepped forward, breaking from our yard. I grabbed his collar. For the first time since he returned, he growled at me. Not loudly, not angrily, but disappointed, like I'd failed him. And in that moment I understood. They weren't corrupted. They were connected. And whatever had touched Shadow 2 years ago had multiplied, not through infection or bite, but through proximity, through observation, through grief, through the fracture in the bond between humans and animals. Because the dogs felt it first. Our exhaustion, our guilt, our neglect, our raised voices, our closed doors. They felt the cracks in us. And something slipped through those cracks. Something patient. Something that does not hate. Something that reorganizes. Dogs are loyal, affectionate, gentle. They love without condition. But what happens when that unconditional love becomes unconditional obedience to something else? What happens when their loyalty shifts? Not away from us, but above us. The woods began humming, low, mechanical, almost like distant chanting, but without words. The dogs stepped forward in unison. Every leash slipped free. Every fence seemed suddenly too low. Shadow pulled away from me with effortless strength and joined them. I followed, because of course I did. Because even then, I believed I could bring him back. The clearing in the woods was no longer empty. It was worn, flattened, shaped, as if something vast had been resting there nightly. The dogs formed a circle. Saturday, all at once, heads bowed, then raised, toward the sky, and howled, not mournful, not feral, reverent. The sound vibrated in my bones, in my teeth, in my skull, and I saw it, not with my eyes, but inside my mind, a vast shape above us, not descending, already here, already intertwined with the earth, already inside the spaces between homes. The dogs weren't summoning it. They were acknowledging it, like parishioners greeting a cathedral. I screamed Shadow's name. He turned. For a second, just a second, I saw him, the old him, the dog who used to press his head against my knee when I cried, the dog who once slept belly up, trusting the world completely. And then it was gone, replaced with calm certainty. He stepped closer to me, pressed his forehead to mine, and I heard something. Not words, but intention. You were never meant to protect us. We were meant to prepare you. Prepare us for what? For a world where humans are no longer at the center, where loyalty belongs to something deeper than companionship, where love is redirected toward something ancient. The next morning, the neighborhood looked normal. Dogs lay on porches. Children played. Adults drank coffee. But something fundamental had shifted. People moved slower, spoke softer, argued less, not because they chose to, because they were being adjusted. Every home with a dog became quieter, more orderly, more aligned. Those without dogs began adopting them, drawn inexplicably, as if sensing safety, as if sensing inevitability. I tried to leave, packed a car, called Shadow. He climbed in without hesitation. Relief flooded me. Maybe he was still mine. Maybe we could escape, whatever this was. As I pulled out of the driveway, every dog in the neighborhood stood, watched, silent. We drove 5 miles, 10, 20. Shadow began to tremble, not in fear, in resistance. He stared at the rearview mirror, and I understood. The connection wasn't geographical. It was internal. We didn't bring him home 2 years ago. He brought something with him. And now that something lives wherever we go. I'm recording this from a motel far from that neighborhood. Shadow is lying at the foot of the bed, eyes open, watching the door, not to keep danger out, but to keep something in. I no longer believe the dogs are possessed. I think they've simply been promoted, elevated to something closer to their true role. Guardians not of homes, but of thresholds between us and whatever waits in the spaces we don't fill with love. If your dog has started staring at nothing, if it pauses before responding, if it watches you as if measuring your worth, it's not angry, it's evaluating. And when enough of them decide we are ready, they won't need to growl, they won't need to bite. They will simply guide us, gently, patiently, the way loyal companions always have. Only this time, we won't be the ones holding the leash. And when they all look toward the woods at once, don't follow, because the clearing isn't empty anymore. It never was. And if your dog presses its forehead to yours tonight, listen carefully, because the whisper won't be coming from it. It will be coming through it. If you have a dog, listen carefully. Tonight, when the house is quiet and the lights are off, notice where your family chooses to sleep. If it's not in their beds, if it's closer to the door, if it's on the floor, then it has already begun. It started with a suggestion. That's how evil moves now. Not through claws, not through blood, through comfort. Shadow began lying across the bedroom doorway every night, not guarding it, blocking it. If I tried stepping over him, he wouldn't growl. He would simply shift subtly until the path narrowed. One night, my wife said, "Let's just sleep in the living room, all together. It feels safer." Safer from what? She couldn't answer. Neither could I, but we did it. Blankets on the floor, pillows side by side, the television off, curtains drawn. Shadow lay in the center of us, watching, not protecting, observing. The next morning, Mrs. Halpern mentioned the same thing. "So strange," she laughed weakly. "We all fell asleep in the den last night. Baxter wouldn't settle otherwise." Across the street, the Rodriguezes did the same. Then the Millers. Then every house on the block. Families stopped using their bedrooms. Beds felt wrong. Elevated. Exposed. Separated. The floor felt unified. Grounded. Closer to something. The children adapted first. Children always do. They stopped asking why. They stopped questioning the dog's stares into dark corners. Instead, they listened. My daughter, Emma, woke me at 3:17 a.m. "Dad," she whispered, her face pale in the dim light. "Shadow says we have to stay close together." My heart froze. Shadow didn't say anything. She shook her head gently. He doesn't use words. Across the room, Shadow's ears twitched, but he didn't look at us. He was staring at the hallway, where the darkness pooled like liquid. Soon, children across the neighborhood began repeating similar phrases. They tell us when to lie down. They say not to open the curtains. They say the walls are thinner at night. Parents laugh nervously, until we realize something horrifying. The instructions were consistent. Across homes, across streets, across families who hadn't spoken to each other in days. And the dogs all turned their heads at the exact same time each evening, as if waiting for confirmation. Sleeping on the floor became ritual. The dogs would not rest unless we gathered. If one person attempted to return to a bedroom, the dog would follow, sit in the doorway, block entry, stare, not aggressive, not violent, just patient, as if waiting for us to remember our place. And that was the worst part. It didn't feel like captivity. It felt like correction. Shadow began positioning us. That's the only word for it. He would nudge Emma slightly left, press against my wife's shoulder until she shifted, tap my knee until I adjusted, until our bodies formed a rough circle. Him in the center. Every night, the same pattern. One night, I resisted. I stayed slightly outside the shape. Shadow stood, walked to me, placed his paw on my chest, and stared directly into my eyes. There was no hatred there, no rage, only disappointment, and something vast behind it. I moved back into place, and he lay down, satisfied. The neighborhood quieted. No late-night television, no arguments, no music, just synchronized breathing, low, measured, collective. Sometimes I would step outside at 2 a.m. and see the glow of living rooms across the street, every family on the floor, every dog in the center, perfect symmetry, like a ritual too subtle to notice unless you were looking for it. The children began drawing. Circles, always circles. Inside them, small shapes. Inside those shapes, larger shadows. Emma showed me one. "Is this shadow?" I asked. She frowned gently. "No, that's the doorway." "What doorway?" She looked at me with something like pity. "You can't hear it yet." The instructions grew more specific. "Don't answer the door after sunset. Don't look under the bed. Keep the windows locked but slightly open. Stay on the floor until morning light touches the ceiling. The children said these things calmly, not afraid, not confused, as if reporting weather updates. When I asked Emma, who was giving the instructions, she tilted her head. All of them. All of who? The ones who stayed. Sleep changed. Dreams synchronized. I began seeing the same image every night. A vast shape beneath the neighborhood. Not above. Beneath. Something curled and patient. Breathing. The dogs weren't guarding us from it. They were aligning us over it. Like pieces on a board. Like anchors. Like offerings not of blood, but a position. I tried to take control. I truly did. One evening, I locked Shadow outside. He didn't bark. He didn't scratch. He sat, staring at the door, and something inside me began to panic. Not guilt, not fear for him. Fear for us. Emma began shaking. "It's wrong," she whispered. "He can't hear properly from outside." My wife began pacing. "We have to let him in. It's just a dog," I snapped. But my voice sounded foreign. Weak. Because somewhere deep inside, I knew it wasn't true anymore. When I opened the door, Shadow didn't rush in. He walked past me slowly, entered the living room, waited. We moved into position without speaking. And the house felt corrected again. The panic vanished. That's when I understood the true horror. We weren't protecting our beloved companion from corruption. We were protecting ourselves from disconnection. The metaphor revealed itself too late. Dogs have always been guardians. But what if they were never guarding homes? What if they were guarding thresholds? And what if something ancient had been waiting for humans to fracture? To isolate in separate rooms, separate screens, separate thoughts? The floor brought us together. Unified. Close to the earth. Close to whatever waits beneath it. The dogs were re-establishing formation. Rebuilding the pack. Only this time, we weren't the leaders. One night, the instructions changed. Emma's eyes opened in the dark. They say, tomorrow we won't need the circle. I felt ice in my veins. Why? Because it will be inside. Shadow slowly turned his head toward her, and for the first time, he wagged his tail. I don't know how long we have. Families across the neighborhood now sleep exclusively on the floor. Beds gather dust. Dogs no longer stare at corners. They stare at us, assessing alignment, measuring compliance. Children no longer whisper. They speak in unison. Soft, calm. They're almost ready. I tried to leave again last night. Packed the car silently. Shadow didn't follow. He stayed in the living room, watching the empty circle. Waiting. Emma stood in the doorway. "You can't go," she said gently. "Why?" She smiled. "Because you're already part of the shape." And when I looked down at the floor, I saw the indentations in the wood. Circular. Permanent. As if we had been lying there not for weeks, but for years. Tonight, we sleep again on the floor. Closer than ever. The house feels smaller. The air heavier. The hum beneath us louder. Shadow is not in the center this time. I am. He lies just outside the circle, watching me, evaluating. And I finally understand the helplessness. I cannot protect him, because he does not need protection. I cannot protect my family, because they are not in danger. I cannot protect myself, because I am already aligned. If you wake tonight and find yourself on the floor, closer to your dog than usual, don't move too quickly. Don't disrupt the shape, because once the formation completes, it won't be about loyalty anymore. It will be about obedience. And the thing beneath your home, it doesn't growl. It doesn't bite. It waits. And when it decides the pack is ready, the circle won't be around the dog. It will be around you. If you're watching this in an airport, look around you. Find the nearest service dog, not the owner, the dog. Watch its posture. Is it alert or is it waiting? Because the day the airports went silent, the world didn't end in fire. It ended in refusal. The first video surfaced at 6:12 a.m. A service Labrador guiding a blind woman. through a crowded terminal, suddenly stopped mid-stride. Not distracted, not startled. It simply froze. Perfect posture. Eyes forward. The woman tugged gently on the harness. Forward, she whispered. The dog didn't move. Security footage showed something chilling. Across 3 terminals, at the exact same second, 12 service animals froze in place. No barking, no panic, just stillness. And then, they all turned their heads in the same direction, toward the tarmac, toward open sky. By afternoon, airports across continents reported identical incidents. Guide dogs halted. Emotional support animals slipped from laps and sat upright in aisles. Sniffer dogs at customs stopped mid-search and calmly walked away from contraband, not rebelling, not attacking, just disengaging. The headlines called a neurological anomaly. The handlers knew better, because the dog's eyes weren't confused. They were focused, listening. Military bases were next. Footage leaked from AK-9 training yard. A handler gave command. The dog stared. Command repeated. The dog slowly sat, turned its head, and ignored him. Not aggression, not hostility, refusal. One by one, units reported the same. Explosive detection dogs, patrol dogs, search and rescue dogs. They will perform basic tasks. But when given directives that implied control, they declined, and then they would look past their handlers, as if awaiting confirmation from something higher in rank. The military attempted isolation protocols, separated the animals, soundproof rooms, white noise. It didn't matter, because the signal wasn't auditory. It wasn't environmental. It was internal. Farmers began noticing it next. Herd dogs stood at the edges of fields and simply watched. Livestock no longer responded to whistles. Cattle moved only when the dogs shifted position. Sheep followed the dogs, not the shepherds. In one viral clip, a border collie walked into the center of a field and lay down. Hundreds of sheep circled it. Perfect symmetry. The farmer screamed commands. The animals ignored him. They weren't frightened. They were reorganizing. I knew before the news did, because in our living room, on our worn wooden floor, the circle had already completed. Shadow no longer positioned us. We positioned ourselves. No one spoke of it. We just knew where to lie. Emma stopped whispering instructions. She no longer needed to. We could hear it too. Not words. Pressure, like atmospheric weight shifting inside the skull. The hum beneath the house grew stronger. The entire neighborhood slept on the floor now, not out of fear, out of alignment. The terrifying thing about global collapse is not chaos. It's calm. Planes continued flying. Markets stayed open. People went to work. But everywhere, dogs paused, stared, turned their heads simultaneously at 3:17 a.m. Across time zones, across continents. A synchronized movement too precise to dismiss. The media called it coincidence, then anomaly, then mass behavioral event. They never called it what it was. Hierarchy reversal. I tried one final time to assert control. I stood in the center of the circle one night and said, firmly, no. Shadow looked at me, not angrily, not disappointed, curious, as of observing a child testing gravity. I stepped out of the formation. The hum intensified. My wife gasped. Emma clutched her ears, not in pain, in overload. And suddenly, I felt it, the weight beneath us shifting, not rising, not emerging, just tightening, like a muscle flexing underground. Shadow stood, walked toward me, placed his forehead against mine again. But this time, I understood. The entity beneath the world wasn't invading. It was stabilizing. For thousands of years, humans built walls, separate rooms, separate cities, separate nations. Dogs bridged us, pack animals, social glue. They lived inside our fractures. They listened to our silences. They memorized our breathing patterns. And slowly, they mapped us, not to serve, but to prepare. Airports shut down 3 days later, not from disaster, from indecision. Pilots refused takeoff because service animals wouldn't board. Military K, 9 units were quietly retired. Farmers reported fields operating more efficiently under K9 direction. Cities grew quieter at night. Less crime, less argument, less noise, because something was harmonizing us. The final arc revealed itself slowly. The dogs were not summoning an entity. They were the nervous system of something that had always existed beneath human civilization. Something patient, something ancient, something that required proximity to activate. And humanity had finally reached maximum density, maximum disconnection, maximum instability. So the system corrected, through the only species woven deeply enough into every home. The last resistance came from people like me, owners who believed love meant authority. We tried separating ourselves from our dogs, relocating, isolating, but the connection wasn't physical anymore. It was structural. We had slept in circles long enough, aligned long enough, listened long enough. The formation was internal now. The final night, the world did not darken. There was no explosion, no invasion. At 3:17 a.m., every dog on Earth lay down, simultaneously, facing north, and every human who would share a floor with them felt the shift. Not pain, not fear, release. The hum stopped, because it was no longer beneath us. It was within us. Shadow lies beside me now, not in the center, not outside the circle. Beside me, equal. The hierarchy is gone. We don't command him. He doesn't evaluate us. We move together, instinctively. Cities function more smoothly now. Conflicts dissolve faster. Noise levels have dropped globally. Children sleep without nightmares. Because the thing beneath the world, the one we feared, was not demonic. It was collective, a planetary consciousness requiring synchronization. Dogs were simply the interface, the bridge species, the ones who answered. You want darkness? Here it is. We were never corrupted. We were incomplete. And the correction felt like loss only because we mistook dominance for safety. Now when shadow stares into dark corners, I don't feel fear because I understand. He's not watching for threats. He's monitoring balance. And sometimes, when the house is perfectly silent, I feel the faintest echo of the old hum, not beneath the floor, but inside my chest. Steady, measured, shared. If your dog freezes mid-step tomorrow, if it turns its head in unison with thousands of others, don't panic. Don't pull the leash. Just listen, because the trilogy doesn't end with humanity destroyed. It ends with humanity repositioned. The pack is expanded. The circle is global. And this time, we're not sleeping around the dog. We are sleeping with the world. And something vast and patient is finally at peace.